He's James Worthy, the Hall of Famer, who joins us on the show. How's your penmanship, James?
It's pretty good on the back of checks, not that good on the front.
Did you practice signing? When did you start practice signing your name?
I think the first time someone asked me for my autograph, I think I was in the 10th grade, I think. And I don't know, I used to fantasize about being in the NBA and being famous. And so, yeah, I used to print it out, and then I got better at cursive.
Who's the most famous person who ever asked for your autograph?
The most famous person? I don't know. I can't recall. I don't know. I really don't know.
A president?
Maybe Lou Gossett. I was good friends with Lou Gossett. He got a couple things back in the 80s. I was good friends with him. Probably a few celebs out here.
What about a president? Any president?
No president. No, I had the chance to meet Governor Reagan when he was governor of California, and then had a chance to meet him again in the White House, but never asked for my autograph, no.
It happens so quickly when you go through something like you did with the Lakers in Showtime that, people probably stop you or they remind you, enjoy it while you can. You look back on it. Were you able to enjoy it when you were going through Showtime?
There were moments when you had a chance to stop and breathe or stop and smell the roses for a second. But it was so continuous, and it was so much to look forward to after each season. And those summers were filled with busy stuff, and you really don't get a chance to reflect back and reminisce. Like right now,
yeah.
Like I'm the biggest trash talker, there is. I never talk trash when I played, but when you retire and you have those reunions and you look at the films and you realize you can't run and jump anymore. You start to appreciate it a little bit more.
But why no trash talking when you played?
I didn't have to, because I played. I always felt like I never really had to talk trash. If someone talked trash to me, then that just fired me up, and I just kind of let the play do it. I mean, I'm sure there were times when I said, hey, shut the F up or F you or something like that in the heat of battle, I'm sure. Yeah.
But you always seemed like you were under control. Every time I watched you play, it didn't seem like you had high highs or low lows.
I learned early to not let people knock me off my feet a little bit. I knew that there's going to be a roller coaster sometime, and so I always was prepped for that, and I never wanted, that kind of attention to myself. So when you talk trash, you kind of got to back it up.
But Jordan talks trash, but I didn't know, as a fellow Tar Heel, did he include you in the trash talking?
I remember Michael Jordan's recruiting trip. It was a weekend, football weekend, and he got off the elevator. I was in my room, and I heard this guy. I was like, yeah, this is going to be my hall. This is going to be mine. He was talking trash from the beginning, man. And he bullied me because I was kind of the best guy on the team at the time. And he wanted to seek out the best all the time. So after practice, I'd be trying to walk out off the court, and he'd push me back on, and just a bully. He still talks trash. We played about 3 games, one-on-one, and I beat him 2 out of 3, and I never played him again. And he finally admitted it, because Michael will never admit defeat. But so I'm still better than he is.
But at what point did you realize that Jordan was better than you?
About 3 weeks into his freshman year. He hadn't learned the theory yet. He hadn't really got the fundamentals down. But his confidence, and I was a pretty confident player too, but his confidence was off the scale. It almost touched arrogance. And he's not an arrogant guy, but relentless, fearless, and I knew at some point, he was going to surpass me. And, he had that kind of raw talent.
It's James Worthy, the former Laker great, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. But you're playing for a coach in Dean Smith, who I would think would make sure that he, suppressed everybody's ego, that he held, everybody was held in check there.
Totally. The story. Freshmen couldn't even talk to the media till after the first game, and so they didn't even get a chance to speak. And I remember Sports Illustrated desperately wanted Michael Jordan to be on the cover of that 1982 Sports Illustrated cover. And if you go back and look at it, it's only 4 players. Coach Smith wouldn't allow it. So he knew how to, I mean, the big joke is who's the only person that, to ever stop Michael Jordan. That's Coach Dean Smith.
But I thought it was a credit to Coach Smith that Michael would buy into it, that here you had a guy that you knew, 1 game, 2 games, 3 games in, that he was already better than you and you were one of the top players in the country, that he still bought into Dean Smith's system.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the beginning for Michael, because I think he would have been a great player had he gone any university. He just had the raw talent. But I think coming to North Carolina, learning the fundamentals of the game, learning some life lessons, and being under the tutelage of a unique personality in Coach Smith, who really didn't care about, basketball was kind of secondary to Coach Smith, as great as he was. But what Michael got is what I think has propelled him to being the best in life after basketball and how he has handled things. I don't know if he got that, somewhere else. And I know, there's some great coaches out there, but I think it really enhanced his life. And for all the things that Michael has gone through, he's had to fall back on coaches' teaching. So I think it's been a great asset to MJ.
What did you think of the Dream Team, the original Dream Team, when who was picked and who wasn't?
Well, I thought Isaiah and I should have been on it, maybe Dominique Wilkins. But, it's one of those things that you look back, there's a lot of great players.
But how much politics was involved in that? I know they didn't want Isaiah because they didn't like him.
Yeah. I don't have any proof, Dan. I really don't. I know there was some friction between Chicago and Detroit, and I know that Scotty was a teammate of Michael's. I know how that works, but I don't know, man. I look back on it. I still am frustrated that we boycotted 1980. That would have been the year I would have had a chance to try out. And so I know it's political. I remember Kareem talking about it back in the day when he never played. So it's just you can't really dwell on it. I would have liked to have been on the team, but what can I say?
How do you sum up this Laker season here? Like, if you're a Laker fan, and I'm sure you hear from Laker fans all the time, how do you tell them something positive?
I don't. We're going through some growing pains. I try to be as honest as possible. We don't have a leader, especially now that Kobe's out. So we're a bunch of young guys going through some growing pains, and until they can, free up some money, which they're in the process of doing right now, and hopefully guys are still interested in coming to play here. But right now we're just a mess. Looking at the positive things that we look at, guys like Jordan Clarkson, I think might be future of this team. We hadn't had a chance to see Julius Randle. I think Tariq Black coming to this team. We're looking at 2 or 3 years down the road before we can get back on track. I think it's a post-Kobe growth period that we're going through right now.
But you look at guys who are leaders. LeBron's going through this now in Cleveland, trying to be a leader. I saw how Michael led, and it's basically keep up with me or the hell with you, and it's almost like Kobe is kind of emblematic of that same type of leadership. Do you see that comparison between Kobe and Mike in the way they led a team?
I think Michael finally figured out how to enroll more. I think Michael realized that as great as he was, guys just couldn't do it like he could as easily as he could. Magic Johnson was a coach for 16, 17 games. I remember pulling Magic to the side. I was like, "You're Magic." I said, these are Anthony Peeler's not going to be able to do it exactly like you did it. He might take him 3 years to learn what you do in a week. So I think Michael learned quicker than Kobe how to enroll guys like Steve Kerr and, Will Perdue even. And he was a little bit more patient with them. When he got Rodman, he learned how to be a little bit more patient. I think Kobe's, moved into that later stage. I think the last year and a half he's trying to see that, guys aren't as good as he, and he has to just kind of wait on some players to catch up.
If you're Kobe, would you retire or come back?
Well, I retired. I tell you, I was done at 11 years, and I retired after 12 when I realized I couldn't when I couldn't do anything anymore. If I had gone through what Kobe had gone through, probably the Achilles would have gotten me. But I'm human, and he's an alien. So it's like he could have played in the '80s and the '70s. He's a bad guy. So he wants to go out on his own terms, and he still feels like he's one of those players that, knowing Kobe, he's still looking at he might be looking at Karl Malone's record. Who knows? That's just the way he thinks. But I think he's also realizing that his recovery time is not there. I talked to Kobe about 3 months ago, and his legs aren't there, and obviously Byron Scott's done a great job of, diminishing his minutes and taking some games off. That's what it's going to take if he wants to try to finish out this next year.
Always good to talk to you, James. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, Dan.
All right, that's James Worthy.